that have defined your life, and we're sat here thinking, where does Sir Cliff Richard start with that?
Elvis Presley.
Ah.
There was a tsunami of rock and roll that came over from the States, and none of us had heard anything like it. And even when I first heard Elvis, we thought, well, from which planet did this person arrive from? And so it just grew and grew. And almost anybody that is not American, but is a singer or in a band, would be because of what came from America. It'll always be the fatherland of rock and roll.
There was one song in particular that you heard from Elvis that sort of changed your life, in a way.
Yes. We were walking, my drummer and another guitarist and myself were walking about downtown in Chessington, Hertfordshire, and this car stopped outside the shop. The windows were down, the engine was running, and the radio was on. He went in to buy, I don't know, a magazine or something, and while we're looking at the car, thinking, we're going to have a car like that, suddenly we heard, "Since my baby left, boom, boom, I found a new place," and the guy got in and drove off. So we listened to the radio coming from Germany in those days, and one of my friends came around and said, "It's a guy called Elvis Presley, and the song is called Heartbreak Hotel," and I knew at that moment that that's what I wanted to be.
Wow.
I used to have dreams that I was Elvis. I didn't want to be like him. I was, and I'd wake up in the morning and go, "Oh, that's not true."
I think we all had that moment in the bedroom at some point, didn't we?
Do the dance. We'll go from one artist to another band, because yesterday on the show we announced that next week we're going to be showing a film, the story behind the Beatles' very final track.
The
Now
Beatles?
and Then. Yes.
Yeah.
And then, you were friends with the band, weren't you, sir? Through their song Love Me Do? Is it?
I have to tell you that the Shadows and I started 5 years before the Beatles, and therefore everybody thinks they own Abbey Road. I owned it. I merely rented it to them for a while, and they came up with all these fabulous songs and everything, and we did meet up. And the funny thing, James, I don't know if you can still remember who influenced you, but when we met the Beatles for the first time, it was just after Please Please Me, their first #1, and we found out that they had been listening to the same people, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley, and Paul had said that when he and John were writing songs together, they thought of themselves as the Everly Brothers, and John was Don, and Paul was Phil, because he had the hhigher voice.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, most of us really do come from the same not information.
It was...
That's where it comes from, and I'm just hoping that the book will show that people like me and you, that we don't always make it on our own.
Well, actually, just on that, making it in America. In the book, you talk about Devil Woman, and about how certain Elton John helped you break through there, because you hadn't had much success up until that point.
Yeah, I never made anything through them, and sometimes I have to bring it up and say that the record company in America, when The Minute You're Gone was #1 in England, they didn't want to release it. We played them Devil Woman, they didn't want it. We Don't Talk About It, they didn't want it. Elton comes and said, "Those songs, can I release them?" And he got me into the top 10.
Elton knows people,
So
doesn't he?
sometimes it's a disappointment not to make it somewhere, but now, James, I can walk around, I do my own shopping. I go to supermarkets and things like that. Nobody spots me because they don't know who I am.
That is not true, no way.
Well, actually, James, you can testify to Elton John's